this whole city of Atlanta is coming together for all of us. And, when we go score or whatever it may be, get a big first down, a big play, you hear that crowd go nuts, it makes our job a lot easier and a lot smoother.
16 seconds left. First and goal, Atlanta at the 3. Snap to Ridder's low. He'll move left. Ridder's got to throw it, and he does. Touchdown, Atlanta, and it's Drake London. What a throw.
Inside the Nest, an Atlanta Falcons audio experience. Here is your host, Craig Green.
Touchdown, Atlanta.
Love was in the air, but the Falcons didn't care. The Pack couldn't go. Atlanta's 2-0 before a trip to the Lions' lair. Welcome inside the Nest. I'm your host, Craig Green. Let's get into it. So before we recap the game, let's give credit to the Atlanta Falcons Radio Network for the sound you heard at the beginning of the intro. Desmond Ridder scoring a touchdown pass to Drake London, and also the interview he did post-game in the locker room with Dave Archer of the Atlanta Falcons Radio Network. So thanks, guys, for the sound. Now let's take a look at injury updates. Before the game, Cordero Patterson held out as a precaution with his thigh injury, was listed as inactive before the game, and Jeff Okudah as well did not play. He was a DNP versus Green Bay due to that ankle injury that he sustained in the preseason. Both guys are trending in the right direction, but Arthur Smith decided to hold them out for Sunday's game simply out of precaution. I do feel like you may be able to see these guys this Sunday against the Detroit Lions at Ford Field. So let's go ahead and recap this past Sunday's game. Falcons win 25-24. Field goal by Younghoe Koo. Under a minute to go. Clinches it. The Falcons get a stop and walk away with the victory. 2-0. 2-0 in the NFC. Actually 1-0 in the NFC South in sole possession of first place after 2 weeks. So we'll take a look at the total yards. Falcons pretty much dominated the total yards, almost doubling up the Packers. It was 446 to 224 Atlanta. Passing yards, 235 to 140 Atlanta. Rushing yards, 211 rushing yards for the Falcons to 84 for Green Bay. Yards per play, 5.7 to 4.8 Atlanta. Also, first downs, Atlanta had the lead in that, 27 to 17. Third downs, Atlanta was 6 of 15. Green Bay just 3 of 9. On fourth down, the Falcons were 3 of 4 on fourth down. Green Bay went for it once and did not convert. That was at the end of the game. And also, total plays, Atlanta ran 78 plays to that of 47. Complete statistical domination when it comes to that. Sacks were even, 1 apiece. The Falcons only punted 1 time this game, as opposed to 4 punts for the Packers. 7 penalties for just 40 yards compared to 6 penalties to 110 yards assessed against Atlanta. The Packers won the turnover battle with Desmond Ridder throwing his first career NFL interception. Green Bay did not turn the ball over whatsoever, and time of possession easily in favor of the Falcons, 36 minutes, 15 seconds to 23 minutes, 45 seconds for Green Bay. Scoring summary as well, the Falcons scored in all 4 quarters. Green Bay got all their points in the second and third. They had a 12-point lead going into the fourth quarter, leading 14-12. The Falcons shut them out 13-0 in the final 15 minutes, get the fourth quarter comeback, and win 25-24. So we'll take a look at the Falcons' statistics and who led in those categories. Desmond Ridder, 19 of 22, 237 yards, 1 touchdown pass, 1 interception. Also ran for a 9-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter to help bring the Falcons back in front. Fantastic game, 19 carries, 124 yards. He also caught 4 passes for 48 yards, so 172 total yards for Bijan Robinson. Did not score, though. Tyler Algier, 16 carries, 48 yards. And Ridder, 10 carries himself, 39 yards, and the aforementioned rushing touchdown. So, receiving-wise, Drake London had a bounce back game statistically, 6 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. Mac Hollins, 3 catches, 60 yards, had a 45-yard catch that set up the Falcons again on a scoring drive. Bijan Robinson, we mentioned again, 4 catches, 48 yards. Jonnu Smith, 4 catches, 47 yards, and Kyle Pitts, 2 catches for 15 yards. Defensively, the Falcons were led by Caden Ellis, who had 6 tackles and a sack on the day, the only sack they had of Jordan Love. Then looking at the punting statistics, Bradley Pinion, just 1 punt, was 45 yards. Younghoe Koo, 4 for 4 on field goals, missed an extra point. He scored 13 points on the day. His long field goal was 39 yards. So now that we looked at the stats, let's take a look at the good of this game. The good, Desmond Ridder, he spread the ball around. Pitts, Bijan, Hollins, Drake, as we said, had a bounce-back game statistically. Even Jonnu Smith, again, 4 catches on 6 targets. The also good thing about this game, the defense got stops to end the game for the second straight week. Arthur Smith, he did a fantastic job of managing game situations and the clock late in the game. He forced Matt LaFleur to burn his timeouts, played the clock well, used a challenge as essentially a timeout to talk to his team about going for it on 4th down as opposed to kicking the field goal. They ultimately decided to go for it. Bijan Robinson picked up the 4th down and 1. They milked the clock a little bit more before they sent Koo out to kick the field goal with 50 seconds to go. The bad from this game, not a lot, but we have to mention it. Penalties. 6 penalties for 110 yards. Some of those penalties were costly to the Falcons. Taquan Graham had a holding penalty in the 3rd quarter. That led to Green Bay taking the lead on a 32-yard touchdown pass the very next play. Also, Trey Flowers had a pass interference call. It was a 43-yard penalty. It put Green Bay in Falcons territory. They scored a few plays later. All of a sudden, the Falcons are down 24-12 before you know it. Also, the pass protection is still a work in progress. I mean, Ridder was protected fairly well, but when you look at the QB hit statistics, he was hit 6 times compared to that of Jordan Love getting hit only 3 times. And the interception that Desmond Ridder threw was a result of being hit on the arm as he was trying to throw the ball to Kyle Pitts. That's what led to the ball fluttering in the air and Rasul Douglas picking it off. The other bad that I have to mention is 3rd down conversions. 6 of 15 on 3rd down. You'd like to see the Falcons be a little more efficient, as opposed to getting 6 3rd downs and missing on 9. You'd like to see that number flipped and maybe go 9 for 15 as opposed to 6 for 15. That would be a little more acceptable and probably would have added to some more statistical domination. And I don't think Green Bay would have been in this game had the Falcons converted on 3rd down better. Also, 2 of 5 in the red zone after having much better success, 3 for 3 the week before. This week, the Falcons were 2 of 5. Couldn't punch it in the end zone. Green Bay was pretty stout up front, gave the Falcons some headaches. They started picking up some steam in the second half and were really able to punch the ball down the throat of the Packers and impose their will. Let's take a look at the next opponent for our Atlanta Falcons, and that is the Detroit Lions. They're coming up next at Ford Field in Detroit, a domed stadium, 1 p.m. kickoff, so weather will not be a factor at all. The Lions lead the all-time series 25-14 over the Falcons, but since the year 2000, the Falcons are 8-4 against the Lions. And for those of you who have been longtime fans of the Falcons, you will know that the Falcons and Lions have had some memorable games over the years, just in the last several years alone. So let's go back to 2014. In London at Wembley Stadium, the Falcons up 21-0 on the Lions, but end up losing 22-21 on that weird field goal penalty call that allowed Detroit to re-kick after the first field goal was missed. I thought the Falcons had won the game. Falcons thought they won the game, but all of a sudden the referees allow them to re-kick the ball, and the Lions make the second attempt, win the game 22-21. 2017, Falcons get a goal line stand at Ford Field after video review. Everyone thought the Lions won the game. Video replay showed that The receiver was short of the goal line, and with a 10-second runoff added because the Lions were out of timeouts, the Falcons won the football game. Crazy finish. Another crazy finish. 3 years later in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Falcons were down 16-14 inside the red zone, trying to run the clock out against the Lions. Matt Ryan specifically, you could hear it back on a mic'd up session, Matt Ryan specifically told Todd Gurley, do not score, do not get into the end zone. But what happened? Todd Gurley fell into the end zone, stumbling and bumbling, trying to control his own body, could not. Instead, he fell in the end zone, put the Falcons up 22-16. The Lions marched down the field against the Falcons' poor defense that year, end up scoring as time expired and kicking the extra point to win 23-22. Just a head-shaking game. That one put the Falcons at 1-6, effectively putting their playoff chances out the window in 2020. Now, the last game the Falcons played against Detroit was a little bit more sane than the ones we just mentioned. It was a 20-16 Falcons victory in 2021. That one was closed out on an interception by Foye Oluokun, who picked off Jared Goff to seal the deal and give the Falcons the victory that day. That one, not as crazy. Nevertheless, you won't expect anything less than a tight contest. You know, there's some familiarity between some of the coaching staff. Remember, Ryan Nielsen, the Falcons defensive coordinator, was on the Saints staff, the New Orleans Saints, with Detroit head coach Dan Campbell. So both guys are familiar with each other. They're familiar with the style of defense each team wants to play. So I think this is going to be a tight game. And on my original schedule prediction show, I did predict the Lions to win this game. I thought that they would have the home field advantage and would be able to pull out a tight contest. I don't know if I feel that way now, but we'll roll with it just because that's what's on tape. But either way, it's going to be a fantastic game. We'll see how it all shakes out. All right, so that's going to end this episode of Inside the Nest. I want to thank you, as always, for joining us. And I'd like to invite you to follow me on social media, as we always do. Facebook, Instagram, X, Snapchat, YouTube, and Threads at Craig G Sports. Please download, share, like, and subscribe this podcast, and let any Falcons fans you know about it. Make them aware. Put the headphones on their ears and give it a little listen. So until we return for the next Atlanta Falcons audio experience, which will be after the Lions game coming up, this is your guy CG once again saying sayonara and buenos noches.
Atlanta playing a shell forward. Caden Ellis fires through and drops low.
Okay, rise up, ATL, rise up. We was down bad, but then we rised up. North Carolina, man, they couldn't stop us. Green Bay, man, they couldn't stop us. Hey, rise up, ATL, rise up. Rise up, ATL, rise up. Rise up, ATL, rise up.
Robinson with Ridder in the backfield. Here's Desmond keeping it left side. He will turn the corner and dive for the touchdown. He faked it to Robinson, and everybody with a yellow hat followed Bajan.